You may have heard of the Christian allegory Pilgrim's Progress, which is the second most printed and translated book in history. It's the story of a man named Christian, traveling from the city of destruction to the celestial city. But did you know that it was written in prison by a man who was jailed for over 12 years for preaching? Here is part 3 of the remarkable true story of John Bunyan. Under King Charles II in 1660, laws were enforced requiring all preachers to be licensed by the state church. At that time, there was a union of church and state, and the government tried to control all religious messaging. John Bunyan was a Baptist layman who had carefully studied the Bible and found the comfort that his heart longed for in its sacred pages. Bunyan had long feared that he was too wicked and too great of a sinner to ever be accepted by God. But he had found hope in the Scriptures. He had read the verse in Luke 14:22-23, "Compel them to come in, that my house may be filled, and yet there is room." Bunyan realized that the words, "and yet there is room," were a message to him, and that there was still room in heaven for him, and that Jesus had spoken these words so long ago to encourage him so he wouldn't give up. With fresh hope and faith, John Bunyan preached what he had learned in the Bible because it had changed his life. He wasn't going to stop just because the government said he wasn't allowed to preach without a license. And, you guessed it, he was arrested in November 1660 while conducting a worship service at a private home and thrown into Bedford Jail. Bedford Jail wasn't a very nice place. It was overcrowded, with very poor sanitation. There was a nauseating stench so overpowering visitors to the jail held turpentine-soaked rags to their noses. The food, if you can even call it that, was terrible. Inmates in Bedford Jail would sometimes get a disease called jail fever, which sadly killed a lot of them. You'd think that John Bunyan would do anything to get out of a miserable place like that. That's what the government thought too. After he had been in jail for a while, the authorities told Bunyan they would let him out of prison on the condition that he stopped preaching. Bunyan famously replied, "If I were out of prison today, I would preach the gospel again tomorrow." Because he refused to stop preaching the Bible, his initial sentence was extended to 12 years, from 1660 to 1672. But it was during this lengthy incarceration in Bedford Jail that Bunyan wrote much of the Pilgrim's Progress, along with his spiritual autobiography, Grace Abounding to the Chief of Sinners. Just think about the irony. When the authorities tried to silence him, Providence decreed that Bunyan's books that would one day reach hundreds of millions of people. And there is much more to the story of John Bunyan and the Pilgrim's Progress. Like and subscribe so you don't miss part 4.